I'm Austin Luga.
I'm Andrew Harp.
This is With Nothing to Say.
Let's talk about Titicut Follies.
Before we get into this week's film, next week we're going to be watching Four Nights of a Dreamer, the Robert Bresson movie. I've seen, it looks like, four of his 14 movies: Pickpocket, Man Escaped, Ahazar, Balthazar, and one other. I don't know what the other one is, but you've seen some of his movies too. He's one of the
Yeah.
greats. I mean, he didn't make that many movies because, 14 movies, and I think some of them are shorts. So what?
Yeah, he's like the best director ever. He's like one of the best directors ever. Like
I mean,
very
you're not wrong.
influential in guys like very influential in guys like Paul Schrader, of course. And
Mhm.
you know, uh I I think I've seen Pickpocket multiple times and
Yeah.
you know, yeah, he just I've seen Four Nights of a Dreamer is one that comes up a lot, it seems like. So we might as well watch it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I have not seen this one before, so I'm excited to see something new from him. And almost all of his films, looking at his letterboxd, are on the Criterion. So for anyone who wants to watch most of his work, it's almost entirely on there. I think there's just a few that aren't. A Gentlewoman, looks like a short film isn't on there, and like one or two others. But I'm excited to get into some Bresson, watch some Bresson.
Fuck yeah.
But this week we get to watch about uh, the recently passed director, Frederick Wiseman, who, of course, was gone
Yeah.
too soon. How old is
Yeah,
he?
he was
Like
just a
92?
kid. Yeah, he was 96. So your exact year weren't even it wasn't even an exaggeration. Yeah.
He was an old man who made a lot of movies. I mean, that man,
A lot of amazing movies too. I've seen a lot of them. Ever since I found out about him,
yeah.
I have for the past few years now slowly and surely been making my way through his movies. I watched like a couple big ones of his like early on, and now I'm
Hmm.
slowly watching his movies in release order.
Nice.
And they're just all really good. I mean, some are better than others, but like
Yeah.
there some at least have some they all have at least like some kind of an amazing moment
Hmm.
within it. Uh and he has a very particular style um that has developed a lot as he gets
Yeah.
he went for and especially when he goes into digital, right? Because in digital he doesn't give a fuck and he just will let things go
Just
for a
like
really,
go.
really
Yeah.
long time. Um, I guess you know, I guess like I almost thought about like suggesting his movie about the New York Public Library because that one is just like
Right.
that one has like some amazing like highs and lows, I think.
Hmm.
It's an amazing beautiful adventure of like there'll be like footage at the main library in New York City where they're interviewing some famous celebrity and
Yeah.
then it'll kind of like dip down to where he'll be filming like a meeting at kind of like a smaller library of some local people kind of talking about like their community and like what's going
Hmm.
on and stuff like that and local politics. So that one's amazing. Like I would recommend if you're gonna watch Wiseman, I would recommend that one to watch first, I guess, just because
Okay.
it's a little bit on the long side, but like it has like these like peaks and valleys in terms of emotion that are really great. Titty Cut Follies is an essential documentary. It's like one of the greatest documentaries ever made,
Yeah.
and it's his first movie, obviously, but it's not necessarily. It's just like it just feels it's just a terrible feeling movie the whole time. Like it doesn't have those peaks and valleys like the I believe it's called Ex Libris is what the New York
Yeah.
Public Library documentary
Well,
is about, but but Titty Cut Follies is just it's very upsetting the whole time. So
yeah, of course, we in the past talked about Monrovia, Indiana on the podcast, which I was a huge fan of, and we both expressed our love for that film. And that was the very first Wiseman that I ever watched. And I was very excited to watch more of his work. And I was hoping, typically, when a filmmaker passes, when Rob Reiner passed and Chuck Norris passed,
yeah,
when anyone passes, someone releases a collection of their work. And I was hoping at the very least, maybe Criterion or Canopy or something. But of course, because Canopy is connected to your local university, my university only had Titicut Follies and Monrovia, Indiana. And I was unable, unless I was willing to buy, which at the time I wasn't willing to
just
buy any of his other
just
work.
go. yeah, just go on the archive. Like they're all on
Yeah,
the archive. Just go on archive. Like it's fine. Like Weisman's movies are very inaccessible, but I think it's because I think it's done in a specific way. Like I think he wants them to be more kind of like library materials or something like
right.
that, and less like consumable like movies that
Netflix.
you would find on Netflix or something
Yeah,
like that. I think he wants them to be kind of like specifically like educational.
hmm
So I don't think it's wrong to like
I agree.
illegally download it or go on archive.org. I think he wants people to watch it and learn from them. So yeah.
Yeah. So for all those out there, go find his work. This is my only. It's so strange. 'Cause, Monrovia, Indiana is one of the last films that he made before he passed. He only made like one or two films after. Monrovia, Indiana is very late in his career, and Titicut Follies is his very first film. And you can still
hmm
see the quintessential Wiseman in here, right?
hmm
There's still
Yeah.
he has such a specific and interesting eye, and I think it's so much more important for a documentarian
Oh,
to have that eye than it is for a narrative filmmaker because narrative filmmaker they can rely a lot more on scores and interesting effects and a
yeah.
script where documentary like especially Wiseman because he is not interested in entertaining at all. Even though like this film is only 84
Yeah.
minutes and it goes by incredibly quickly.
His movies are entertaining though, just because like
They are.
they are just because like
Yeah.
they're fucking funny. Like they're funny. They're. I mean, Titty Cat Follies isn't necessarily funny, but like his other movies are. And you were talking about like, oh yeah, like this movie compared to his late period. I mean, he made Titty Cat Follies when he was like I think 37. So
Really?
I mean, like, yeah, like the thing about okay, so the history of Titty Cat Follies is that like Wiseman's from Boston. He's a law professor and he produced some movie. And through that experience, he decided to be a director. And this institution, which is the Massachusetts Correctional Institution in Bridgewater, Massachusetts,
Okay.
was a place that he would go with his law students, like on like field trips and stuff like that. And so then that's how we made the movie. It has also a very interesting history with censorship. Um, Basically, like the state of Massachusetts, like prevented the movie from being released, citing privacy concerns.
Sure.
Like they thought that Wiseman couldn't release it because of all like the different inmates in the movie. That
Mm.
it is very bizarre. Um, Citation, right? Privacy concerns. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like Massachusetts, like they're embarrassed, right? Like they're
As they
embarrassed
should
about
be.
the movie. And it wasn't until the 90s that the movie was actually released, like
Wow.
officially. So this movie did not come out, even though the movie was made in 1967, it was never really actually officially released because it kept on being barred and censored. Um, but he kept on making and releasing movies, and it wasn't until like I think like the earlier mid 90s when it was finally released. So yeah, it just goes to show you though that like this again, the state of Massachusetts, even at that time, was like embarrassed about it, right? They knew it was wrong, considering all the terrible things that they do in the movie. So yeah, and just like the institution itself, it's like obviously these institutions thankfully do not exist anymore. Pretty much, like
Yeah. In this
like it's worth
capacity. Yeah.
like it's like worse than prison, basically. Like
100%.
but it's like they let these people like live. They I guess they just like live in their tiny rooms with like
hmm
nothing, and they don't even have any clothes on. They're just like naked the whole time. Like
Yeah.
it's like worse than prison. Like it's disgusting.
It is so terrifying and haunting at moments. And I think part of the reason it works so well is Wiseman's just there with his camera. And it's amazing. I
Yep.
think one of the things that makes this film so terrifying is here is how these guards and quote unquote officers interact with them when they're on camera. Right? So this is them at their best. This is them like think like they have
Yeah, that's true. Well,
like
like Wiseman talks about that where he'll be like interviewed and stuff, and people will ask him, do people act different like in front of a camera than not?
yeah.
And I think his answer to it is like no. Like his answer is just like no, they don't really act differently in front of the camera. I mean, like I see where he's coming from. He's kind of like saying like even if a person is like maybe changing themselves a little bit or holding back certain things, if they're in front of a camera, that still is them,
It's still
like I,
revealing. Yeah.
it's still revealing, right? So I think that's his point, is that like no one, people aren't really all that different when you put a camera in front of them, I think is what his point is.
Hmm.
Um, and you see that again and again in his movies.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, just watching some of these scenes take place, and it's tough because like you'll have these moments where there's that moment with the psychologist where he's talking to one of the, I guess, inmates. I'm not really sure the how to refer to the people that are forced to live there in this asylum.
Yeah, they're inmates.
Patients.
It's a prison.
They're
Like they're not
inmates.
they're
Yeah.
not being treated for anything, or like they're just totally like it's the fucking institution in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, essentially.
It,
Worse than that.
worse.
Like
Like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest makes it look like fucking heaven compared to this.
it
I mean,
looks
this
all,
is
yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is fun. They like get to like play. Well, I
get to
guess
go on
they
a
do
boat.
kind of like they do like play. Well, they do have fun in Titicut Follies, Austin. They're forced to sing songs and dance and
Oh my God.
play random like games with the nurses or whatever. It's the reason why the reason why the movie is called Titicut Follies, in case people don't know, is that like that's the name of the talent performance show, music
Hmm.
performance show that they make the inmates do. So
Which
you
is
get to
one
see
of
that.
so it opens and closes, which is something that Wiseman likes to do in his work, is he loves a good bookend. And so
Yeah.
it open and closes on this talent show because the talent show when the film opens, especially like if you come in it kind of a little blind, like you don't know a lot of the background of this film, you don't really know what's going on. You're kind of just thrown in the middle of it. You see these people singing and dancing, and clearly there's something wrong and off about the whole thing. And you get this feeling kind of in your chest, on your skin, kind of crawling that just doesn't feel right.
That's
And
bad.
I
Well, I
know,
love how like the first scene, again, his Wiseman's editing, his use of editing is always is like kind of like what the movies are all about,
yeah.
and the way that he orders scenes, right?
Hmm.
And so you have the Titty Cut Follies scene at the very beginning where they're like playing, and then it cuts to like a scene in which they're being stripped. They're the patients are like taking off like their clothes, and they're like kind of standing around naked awkwardly.
Hmm.
And it's like, and then they cuts again. It cuts back and forth between that scene and the scene of the guy talking about like sexually abusing his daughter and stuff like that, which is like a very disturbing part of the movie.
Yeah.
So like just that just like cutting from that first scene to those things is just like just amazing.
And
Like he did it.
it creates this feeling in the viewer that, which is interesting how early in the film that they show that scene where the inmate is talking about how he sexually abused his daughter and
Yeah, and like
other people,
others, yeah.
right? And
Like it's
other
just like
people. And
yeah,
so
and the psychologist is a character that comes up in the movie as well. It's like a
yes,
German guy, it sounds like, or
he's like a thick German accent.
yeah, like a thick European accent of some sort.
And he's crazy. I mean, he treats his ideas on what psychology are and how you
Things have
should treat people.
changed and developed over
Yes,
time.
things have changed a bit since 1967 for the better, I hope. And I think it's really interesting that the scene comes so early on because a different filmmaker would want to withhold that kind of information because they want you to feel, because you should feel bad for these, because they're treated like terrible and they're not treated like human beings. But also, some of them have done terrible things. And so you have
Yeah.
this, but I love that Wiseman like has that scene so early on because he's like, you don't get to feel bad for this person just because like they're a good person and they're in a bad situation. Like some of these people have done bad things, but that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
they shouldn't still be treated like human beings. And that's like the complication of this whole thing. And I think that's in a way, this is how the psychologists and all the people on the board and the guards, that's how they justify everything they do. Because like, oh, these are terrible people. And so we can strip them and
They
tease
think they're
them
doing
and
like
torture them.
they think they're doing like a service to the world by keeping everybody locked up. Um yeah, there's definitely a lot of like crazy justifications going on. Yeah, and the way they tease him, and then you have like that one guy that they just like they taunt just
Endlessly.
terribly. Where like he says something and then they'll ask him to repeat even though they did hear him right. Like
Hmm.
that scene sucks. That scene is very bad.
And
because
that seems wrong.
they're trying to get like a reaction out of him too.
Yeah.
So he'll yell and then they'll get angry at him, right?
Hmm.
Like it's just like fuck, like it's worse than prison.
It's so much worse than prison. Because I think what makes this film so haunting, and obviously this was just because I don't think this is out of the norm. I don't think Titicut Follies, like this kind of institution, the Boston, Massachusetts, or the institution in Massachusetts was outside the norm of asylums. I think it was capturing something that was happening across the United States, and part of the reason that asylums ended
Yeah,
up being shut down
yeah.
is in a prison, these people have the wherewithal to say when their human rights, even though people are still breaking their basic human rights,
Yeah,
they
prisons
have the
suck. Yeah.
wherewithal to tell people, right? They have the wherewithal to tell the press and other people. And while no
Well,
one
yeah, they
may
can send
listen,
letters. Like people can send letters, and here it's like, well, they have also clothes in prison. You can wear clothes in prison. Like they don't even like they make them like just like stay in their cells naked. Like it's horrible.
yeah. And there's nothing that they can do because, and it's interesting to capture because there's very much a wide range of what these people have. Like there's some people with very severe schizophrenia,
Or
and
nothing at all. Like the one guy with the funny
that guy
accent.
was crazy.
That guy was one of the that was one that's one of to me that's one of the more memorable scenes, right? Where you have the two scenes of him talking to the psychologist out in the yard, and then the board people after. You're just kind of like, and then what's their conclusion, right, from the board? We have to give him more tranquilizers. Damn it. Like that's terrible because that guy, he seems fine. He doesn't like he's being very reasonable where he's like, look, like I'm getting worse. And as I get worse, you guys are gonna like,
Give me more drugs.
you're gonna give me more drugs, and like I'm just gonna like get worse, and like I don't want to leave. Like I'm fine. Like I don't have to be here. But as I stay here, I'm going to get worse. Like more like I'm gonna be like, and then their solution is like, give them more tranquilizers. That's crazy.
I I
That is like the most frustrating scene in the movie, maybe.
it it is because you hear him talking and you're like everything he says makes sense, and maybe he has some sort of minor, possibly manic depression or some minor mental issues, but it is clearly it's clearly not the severity of some of these people who have like very severe mental illnesses.
Yeah, it's like
And
not the same. It's just not. Yeah,
like they're not at the same level. They're not doing the same thing.
he shouldn't be there. Like I feel like yeah, he shouldn't be there.
And he multiple times he's like, I don't want to be here. You guys are forcing me to take drugs. Like it's very clear that you're breaking his basic human rights, and he's aware of it. Because most of them they're just not aware. They're not aware that they're being, abused.
But I guess what they just are just like, but because he is there, because he is now there, that I think justifies them enough that like he is basically the same as everybody there.
Yeah.
So that means like he has to continue to be like treated on and stay there. Like, come
I mean,
on.
it's like reading a passage out of Catch 22, right? Like the
It
reason
is, yeah.
the like
Yeah.
he is because he is there, he is crazy. And because he is aware that he's crazy, he's also crazy. And because he wants to leave, he's also crazy. So there's no it's an endless loop. Like the very fact that he's aware that he shouldn't be there is the reason that they think that he needs to be there. Like they have this circular logic where no one can ever leave. Like once you go to this place, to this asylum, you're there forever. Like, and it's very clear from those board meetings. Like they are of the opinion
Yeah.
that if you're there, you're going to be there until the day you die. Like there is no leaving. There is no getting.
And you do get to see a guy die, which is great, huh?
Yeah, like towards the end of the film, right? Like you watch.
Well, you see a couple. Well, I kind of wonder, is the guy at the end in the casket, is that the guy who dies from the feeding tube?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
That's another part of the movie
That
that is
scene,
fucking crazy. I don't
like
remember
that scene's
where
hard
I
to
heard it
watch.
from, but um I think I might be heard from a podcast who were talking about this movie a while ago.
Yeah.
But that scene where they go back and forth, the guy of the scene of the shots of the guy getting putting the feeding tube in him
Hmm.
in his nose, which is terrible. and then basically like to his corpse, right? Because he died.
Yeah.
Um, like that is something that Wiseman would probably never do again because that is like very suggestive. He doesn't really do stuff like that where he goes back and forth between like two scenes like pretty quickly in order to
Hmm.
like prove a point.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of proving a point, or because usually what he does, he focuses like on one moment at a time.
Yeah.
And that's what he normally does in Titicut Follies. But like that scene where he goes back and forth, the guy of the guy with the, being alive and then dead,
Hmm.
he doesn't really do that anymore. So it's a very interesting moment because it's very uncharacteristic of his style.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it expresses just the frustration, the anger that because Wiseman is such a like his films are so calm and he's very much a fly on the wall, right? He never there's never talking heads, he's never interacting with
Right.
anybody, right? He just kind of like sits back and lets things happen and he's never interacting. And with his first film, I mean, you can just see like the frustration and the rage, even though he's still not right. It's not like the Werner Herzog where he's has this narration over it or he has these talking heads and he's trying to prove a point. And yet,
No.
even in the editing, you still see moment. I mean, that moment is just like watching him get that feeding because people get feeding tubes all the time. Like that is not an abnormal thing to happen to people, but just the way that they do it and the way that they like they're literally just forcing it down him, right? They're just stuffing up his nose and down his throat, and it
Yeah.
is not. And,
They do it so nonchalantly as well.
and they're like making fun of him like while
They're
like
making
they're
fun of
taunting
him. Yeah.
him while they're doing it like just swallow it like you've done this before like you're a champ right like they're being assholes while they're doing this really shitty thing and to
And
cut
then he
between and
dies.
then he
Yeah.
dies and it's just like there's no to me like that shows like that's your only escape from this place right like no matter what you
You
do
die.
like the only way you're getting out of here is in a casket right there's no other way that you are ever leaving this institution
Because how could you like again? How could you like improve in this
there's no way
situation?
like there's no objective measurement of what improvement is as shown right from the person who clearly shouldn't be there in the first place like there's no way to, and there's like several people in the documentary who are like I'm gonna leave soon right like they're like I'm gonna go to the board I'm gonna tell them I'm ready to leave and they're taunted right because they're like oh you're never leaving like you're never gonna leave this place you're here forever because there is no
Yeah.
leaving right there's no
There,
escaping this place.
he also captures images of people that are clearly just like special needs people. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? Not even necessarily like people who have like maybe paranoid schizophrenia or something like that, but are just like special needs people.
Yep.
It would be like you didn't see anybody in this in the movie, but like it would be like putting like a person with Down syndrome there. You know what I mean? That would be terrible.
Yeah.
Like there are people that he shoots images of where you're just like okay, like I don't know about that. Like that's like what the fuck.
Yeah, it's very much and this is something that this is towards the end of that area because this film was filmed in 1967 and so kind of to give some historical perspective uh during the 1950s is when the first lobotomy was in 1942 and then the orbital lobotomy uh was early 1950s and so this is sort of the this is the end this is the tail end of the asylum era but it was still very much of the era where women were sent to asylums because they were quote unquote hysterical which was another way
Yeah,
just to kind of get rid of like
dismiss them.
right
Yeah.
hysterical could be any like you could define anyone as hysterical and so typically women were sent to asylums and basically just imprisoned for the rest of their life so men could have sex with other women or get married again or, do whatever they want because they didn't want to be with that woman anymore. And the same thing was happening to anyone that was considered abnormal. And so a lot of these people, I mean, there are people there who have severe mental illnesses, but then there's also people there who just have, uh, you know, social disabilities, right? People who
Yeah.
today would be in a CLS classroom or, right, would be in a separate, like, special needs classroom as opposed to the general public maybe would end up living in sort of a group home sort of situation but not people who should be in asylum not people who should be in I mean no one should be there no one should be in a situation like this and as terrible as the prison system still is at least we don't have asylums anymore and I think Massachusetts, like the fact that Massachusetts fought so hard for this not to be released for so long, kind of proves the point. Like even Massachusetts themselves is aware that they fucked up.
Yeah, they are. Like it's embar like it like they fought with like Wiseman for decades about like censoring this movie. And then it was only when in the 90s that a judge was like, okay, pretty much everybody in the movie has died now. So it being released is not really a big deal. It's crazy. Yeah, no, yeah, this is definitely, yeah, probably like one of the more like important. This is like an essential documentary, whether or not like you factor in like the fact that Wiseman directed it, because it just kind of goes to show like how far things have come in
Mm-hmm.
science and in medicine, right? Like, so I think it's important to, be exposed to kind of like these very difficult images,
Yeah.
because uh again, it just shows how far we've come, and how, it's also probably good to think about the movie in the context of today in terms of like, okay, like what things are happening right now that like that we would look back at like 60 years later and think like, oh my God, like that's
How could they
crazy.
have
Like I
done
can't
that?
believe we did that. There are plenty of things that are like that, right?
Hmm.
So it's a good thing to think about. Like probably everybody from mental health professionals, doctors,
Yeah.
probably journalists, law students,
Educators.
social
Yeah.
workers, educators, like all these people should probably watch this movie.
Hmm.
Um, Probably.
Yeah, and I think this is not something that enough documentaries do, and I have been getting into a lot more documentaries just because of Werner Herzog and some other filmmakers that I've gotten interested in. I think this is the value of the documentaries, and we are definitely of the age of the Netflix documentary, right? These documentaries that are merely meant to entertain, right? We have 10,000 fucking documentaries on Ted Bundy and Ted Kaczynski and right all these other mass murderers, and they're bullshit, right? That they add nothing to anything. And I think the value of a documentary, and I think the reason that documentaries are important is because, and I think this is true with the great narrative film too, is they are a historical document that capture a moment in time. And I think there are very few filmmakers who do it as well as Wiseman. I think one of the reasons that Wiseman does it so well, even though in Titicut Follies there is definitely more of a bias than some of his later work, it's still very much him just capturing like this is how the world works at this
Yeah.
moment in time, right? This is what it looks like. Like you might not want to look at it. It might not be it's not a fun it's not like it's not a movie that you're gonna feel good after you watch it. I mean, I watched this movie twice, but I had to after the first time I watched it, I had to give myself well over a week before I could watch it again because it's not an easy like it's a very hard thing to watch. It's a very tough thing to, not because it doesn't move incredibly quickly. I mean, it's only 84 minutes and it just goes very very quickly, but it's just I mean, you're watching human beings getting psychologically tortured and there's not right there's not scenes of people getting brutally beaten or whipped or
Yeah,
tortured in the I guess more traditional sense. But
that's
this
true.
but I mean, they are leaving them naked, so it's still
Yeah,
pretty
it's
much
just,
torture, right? Right?
yeah,
They'll
this is a
literally hose
tortured
them
life.
down with like cold water and laugh at
They hose
them
him down. Yeah.
and force them to do these strange events,
Performances where they're singing
performances.
and
Yeah, I mean, it's horrific, and I
yeah,
think it's yeah.
yeah. I like that the warden too, like it seems like he's like the guy who likes doing it, right?
Oh
The
yeah.
older guy. He seems to really love like for some reason singing and dancing and performances. And so like uh so for some reason like he's in charge, so he gets to like he just likes it for some reason, like he likes singing and he likes this shit, and so he makes these like poor inmates do this. It's like terrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible. It's so evil because it's just like again, they're probably justify it like, oh, it gives them something to do, da 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 da. It's like, but it's so, but they're not like getting any help. There is that one scene later about the nurse where she's talking about like about getting a letter from someone from a former inmate. Do you remember that
Yeah.
scene? That moment?
Hmm.
That I forgot about that when I watched it. I was like, oh wow, that is very interesting because she's kind of like, oh, he's doing great, da, da, da. It's like she's kind of like, you know. She's like almost a bit resigned because she's kind of like, oh yeah, you hope you can help them. And sometimes feels like we're not helping them at all, but like sometimes somebody will write a letter and say like, oh, it's like, oh, okay.
I think one of the things that's interesting is not just watching the inmates themselves. I think a lot about when they're outside in the yard. Like I love that moment, and that one
Yes,
guy
one of
goes on
them's like
like
playing trombone.
got the guy playing the trombone, and one guy goes on like this massive rant about
Yo, he was right too. His rant is very true. I was like agreeing with it. I was like, oh yeah,
oh
it's
yeah,
true.
this all
Yeah,
true,
it's
right?
true.
About like
Yeah, that's
capitalism
true.
and
Yeah, about like the Vietnam War and stuff like that, and he's like
hmm
debating with them and stuff like that. Even like that guy, like should he be there? Like I I don't know. It's like I don't know if I mean the institutions shouldn't exist in the first place. So I guess
right.
that answers my question.
Yeah, I think one of the fascinating things to me is not just watching these people interact and watching how they exist in this world, but just watching the way humans can justify acts that are clearly, like from an outsider's perspective, clearly what they're doing is evil. Clearly they're being
Yeah,
cruel. And yet none of the guards or the warden or the people on the board or the psychologists, none of them think they're doing any wrong, or the nurses, right? They
no,
all think that this is the right thing to do. And I'm just fascinated by that psychology, right? It reminds me of those of that one psychological experiment. I can't remember the name of the experiment where they bring someone in and they slit like each time they turn up the voltage. And right,
yeah,
because they're trying to understand like why the Nazis did what they did. Like how did the Nazis convince people to work at these concentration camps? Like, how do they convince people to do these incredibly evil acts
yeah,
against humanity? And the fact of the matter is like humans are very, very good at justifying any decision that they make
it's
very
true.
quickly. And
Yeah,
and
the movie proves it.
you're watching that, right? You're watching that happen. You're watching these people, like, none of them have
Hmm.
any awareness that what they are doing is wrong. None of them at all think that anything that they have done is evil. Like they're all just of the opinion that like no, like this is what you do. This is how it works. Like this is just the institution. Like there's no aware, and I think that's to me that's the scariest part of the whole thing. Like beyond like that scene where he's getting a thing put up his nose or watching these people like being stripped or hosed down. Like the scariest part is these people genuinely think that they're doing the right thing. Like they have no awareness of what they're because like they are inside the institution, right?
Hmm.
They they have like no sense of like trying to hide anything or right try to pretend to be something that they're not. Like because they think like this is just how it works. Like this is how the world works, and these
Yeah.
people are less than human, and they should be treated as less than human, which is a very disturbing, though I suppose still very modern perspective for a lot of
Hmm.
people to have. I mean, it is still very much part of our world. I think this film is as valuable today, not only for the historical context that it brings to what an asylum was, because I don't think there really isn't a lot of literature or films about asylums. I mean, of course, there's One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but that's a narrative dramatization. And even though
You ever seen The
ironically,
Changeling?
I haven't seen a Changeling. No.
It's like a Clint Eastwood movie. It's pretty good. It's like starring Angelina Jolie. It's like I think it's based off a true story about a woman who like lost her son, and then the police found her son, but it wasn't her son,
Mhm.
right? Like, and she's like, "This isn't my son," and the police are like, "You're crazy. You're going to be put in the asylum," and she's put into asylum, even though she was right. It wasn't her son. But anyway, that's another one that comes to my mind. Um, Shock Corridor is
Shock
another
Corridor
asylum
is,
movie.
which of
I
course
like that
also made
movie.
in the 60s or late 60s, early 70s. Great Samuel Fuller film also captures because this is a very specific, right? Asylums did not, I mean, in this modern sense, did not last for very long. Of course, asylums go back, they go way, way, way back, but sort of the modern asylum ended in the early 70s, I believe. And so we're at a very strange moment where, because like, an asylum in 1800, to be fair, a lot of people didn't know a lot of things. But an asylum in 1960s, like we can get a man on the moon, but we're still sending people to a
It's
place.
pretty crazy. It's pretty funny. On the
And
moon.
yeah, I mean, it's valuable not only for its historical documentation, which I don't think there is enough of this specific issue, but also because it is a great expose of the human psychology. Not what the psychologist said, like you should not follow that psychologist, but just like the way people will believe anything. I mean, they'll do anything to justify their actions, and it's
Hmm.
just, I think it's a clarification of sort of situations that are right, like you want to explain a neo-Nazi, or you want to explain these different tribal groups that are still alive and thriving in our political climate. It's because of things like this. It's not because of the asylum itself. It's because as human beings, we cannot feel that we cannot ourselves feel ourselves evil, right? We cannot believe that we are bad people. I don't think we cannot recognize that. Like I don't think any human with any sort of typical brain function can believe themselves to be evil. And so we have to find justifications where we can find them. And Titicut Follies is a great example of just these people like, you know,
Yeah.
it's so easy to demonize the warden in films, right? It's so easy to be like, oh, he's a
Hmm.
bad guy and here's like all the bad things he does. But I think what makes this film so terrifying is like these people, they're just normal people. Right?
Yeah.
They're not like exceptionally evil human beings who have come to work at this place.
Nope.
They're just
They
they're
don't do
just
anything
people.
particularly crazy. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're like anyone else, and they're just
Hmm.
going to do their job, and they see like this is my 9 to 5, right? A lot of them like see it that way. I mean, there's that great conversation. I can't remember. It's not the psychologist. Maybe it's the warden, but he's on the phone. He's having that conversation like, oh no, I can't meet then because I have an appointment and I can't meet before this time or after that time, and it's just like this very bland conversation that shows that these people who are doing these terrible things are just normal people, right? Like
Yeah.
anyone could be put in this situation and do this same thing, like
Right.
very, very easily. And I think that kind of, I mean, it's very cliche to say, right? It's a mirror to the self. But I think there is something that shows a bit about ourselves because it's very easy to watch us and be like, I would never do that. I would never stoop to
Hmm.
those levels. But it's so easy to get there, right? The steps that it takes to get from where you are to
Yeah.
there is not very far, and that's not something that's changed between 1967 and 2026, right? In
Hmm.
the what 40, 50 years or whatever, 60 years since this film's been made, like it's human nature. It's who we are, and that's the thing that's so important that we always need to take into consideration is we're kind of always on that edge, right? We're anyone can be moved to that, and we have to be very kind and cautious maybe in the way we interact with the world and other human beings, and particularly people who at one time would have been put in asylum. I mean, it's even myself. I mean, I don't work in an asylum, nor do I force people. Well, I guess for a long time I did work in porn, so I did see a lot of naked people, but I never
Hmm.
forced anyone to get naked. But uh, thinking about right when I see a homeless person on the side of the street, like I actively try to avoid them, even though they are most of the time, right, they're the cause of addiction and mental illness. I mean, I think the modern homeless person is not in a much better situation than they were, in the institution in Boston. So, or not Boston, but Massachusetts. We haven't really come that far, right? They're not in the institution anymore, but it's like, okay, well now most of them are homeless on the streets, which I would say is not worse. It's not worse than the situation that they were in, but we are clearly still in a place where we are not providing people who need support. I think this is semi-related, which is here in Reno, they've been tearing down dailies. Do you know what a daily is, Andrew, or weeklies?
No.
So a daily or weekly, for those who don't know, are hotels where you can pay by the day or by the week.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So typically, these are mostly lived in by homeless people, people who can't afford by any means afford a rent. And so you can pay like $20 a day or, $100 a week to live in these incredibly dangerous and scummy hotels. And recently Reno has been tearing a lot of them down because of gentrification is the simplest explanation for what's going on. And there's been a lot of pushback from people who are like, "Oh, well, where are the homeless going to live? Where are these people going to live?" And that whole conversation is frustrating to me because on the one end, they're tearing them down to build these high-end apartments, right? These, $2,000, $3,000 a month apartments, which is true. But on the other end, if you actually cared about the people who lived in these, maybe instead of living in a scummy apartment where there's cockroaches and they do not meet any basic human health standards, maybe we should build affordable housing. Maybe homeless people shouldn't exist, right? Like we have the land, we have the space. I mean, especially here in Reno, drive down any street, hundreds of apartments, right? That sit
Yeah.
empty all the time. But surely we couldn't put and Reno, relative to our population, has one of the highest homeless populations in the country. And it's partly due to
Yeah.
housing costs. It's partly due to just uh, the cost of living here, and it's partly due to the fact that, unlike a place like Indiana, the weather here most of the year you can live outside, right? You can
Hmm.
doesn't get really hot, doesn't get really cold, especially if you're kind of down in the valley. There's not a lot of rain, right? It's very easy to live outside and live on BLM land, which is land that is owned by federal government and anyone can live on. But like if you actually care about this community, which is the same community in this film, Titicut Follies, we should be providing them a safe space to live, which we weren't doing with the weeklies, and we're certainly still not doing by building these high-rise apartment complexes. And yet, even though there's all this space for them, right? Even though there's plenty of food to go
Yeah.
around, you know, we would rather throw it away than donate it to a homeless shelter. And it shows how little has changed in the last 60 years. Perhaps we don't have an asylum in the official sense anymore, which is good. I'm glad we don't exist in that way anymore. But is what like have we really improved? I mean, have we done really any more for the people that are in these situations? You see, sorry, Emily is an occupational therapist, so she works almost exclusively with students with special needs. And some of these students can stay at the school until they're 22, but then once they turn 22, they're kind of just like, all right, good luck, right?
Yeah.
Like as if at 22 they're just going to be cured. They're not, right? These are people with severe physical and mental conditions that are never going to be able to exist in a traditional sense, and we just don't provide any support with them. And we didn't 60 years ago, we don't now. And I think, we talk about what's going to be 60 years from now. What is it going to look like 60 years from now? What are they going to be offended by? And my hope is that they're just like, how could they ever allow people to be homeless at a time in human history where people don't need to be homeless? Like, no one needs to be homeless. Like, it's not a thing that needs to happen. It's capitalism,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
people are so obsessed with greed and wealth that we would rather people live on the streets and become addicted to heroin and to have to become prostitutes, even though like prostitution in Nevada is legal in most counties. There are still prostitutes in counties like because it's not legal in Reno where it's illegal, and like it's more dangerous. I would argue it's more dangerous to be a prostitute in a county that's illegal here in Nevada than it is in other states.
Yeah.
Because if you're a prostitute here illegally, that means like you couldn't become
Hmm.
a prostitute legally, right? So
Hmm.
there's just a lot of dangers involved with that, and you would know that, right? If you're going to see a prostitute illegally in this state, that means like there's a reason that you're not going legally, right? So there's a lot
Hmm.
of problems, and yeah, it's just it should be better, and it's not. And I think Tika Follies kind of shows that how little has changed in 60 years. And maybe in 60 years it will change, and maybe in 60 years we'll kind of, the next Andrew and Austin or us when we're 90 or 89, 90 years old. We'll be having the same conversation and wondering why it still exists this way.
Do you know what do you know what movie he made after Titicut Follies?
Do you do high school next?
Yeah, he did High School, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is funny just because like you could argue that's like kind of another very constricting like institution in the
hmm
United States, right? The high school, right? And it's another one that's very frustrating because it's like, kids like getting in trouble, for things that are, maybe not necessarily their fault. And I think after that he did Law and Order, which is about cops. And then he did Hospital, which is about, a hospital,
The hospital.
obviously. That like those like four movies in a row, very interesting. Did he cut Follies, High School, Law and Order, Hospital, which I've seen them all.
hmm
And they're all very good, very obviously early black and white films
Yeah,
from him. And he was so prolific. He made like a movie a year, pretty much.
that's
Um,
crazy.
but but those four are kind of interesting just because the way they kind of like lead into one another, right? Like these different institutions that sort of inhibit people.
hmm
Hospital is probably a bit more nice, I guess you could say, because it's like these like healthcare workers trying to like help people like not die or whatever. I don't remember Hospital very much, but I think I'm trying to think if there was any interesting like things from I think it's like about like, emergency, room kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Um but yeah, it's more just kind of like um um like kind of about like hospital is more like about a movie where, all kinds of different hospitals are crazy, all kinds of different people go there. So but I do like how High School comes right after Titty Cut Follies just because it's I wonder if that choice was intentional. I guess I don't really know like how if necessarily one project leads into another or if it's just
yeah.
random for him. I mean, I guess we'll never know. I found it kind of interesting. I did watch his final film in the theaters, Menu Plaisir Les Trois Gras, which is about like the French restaurant.
Right.
Uh, that movie uh you know demonstrates how far he comes because he really breaks it down, right, where it's like a movie about like these French restaurant cooks and stuff, like
hmm
these chefs who have like these very successful, very high end restaurant in France. And he breaks it down where it's like, this is where they get the meat. This is where the cheese is made. This is where all the different, and like he breaks it down like
Very
to
wide
the
then.
very,
Yeah.
very, he really like breaks it down. So, I would recommend that movie too. So, it was really great to be able to see his final film. I mean, at the time we didn't know it was going to be his final film. So I'm
Right.
glad I was able to see that in the theater when I did. It's a really long movie. It's over 4 hours, but I still sat and watched the whole thing. So yeah, I really like that one a lot. Is it over 4 hours? I'm looking at it right now. It's 4 hours.
Wow.
So I watched the whole thing.
It's a long movie. It's a long time to be in a movie theater. Was there an intermission? Just straight four
I
hours.
think that there was, maybe. I actually don't know. Maybe? I don't know. I
Interesting.
couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't remember. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Wiseman, he really, really was one of the greats. I think it's, we joke that he was gone too soon because he was 96 years old. He was a very old man, but I think he was very important to the world of film and to filmmakers and to documentarians and historians. And I think that the impact that he has is valuable. And I do hope that his work continues to be widely available, particularly at higher institutions like universities and libraries, because I think his work's important, whether we're talking about Titicut Follies or Morovia, Indiana, or any of his other films. I think these films have value beyond just being, a piece of art. I think there's historical value to these films that it's important to preserve, which I think perhaps we're not doing the same thing we were doing in the 1930s, where we were just letting films rot in a safe somewhere and then get destroyed and then never be recovered. But I mean, I still don't think we're taking very good care of film, I just like, I mean, with everyone's obsession with streaming services and streaming services who will just drop right, a film will be on Netflix and the next day it won't. And then it might not be because, like, whoever owns the rights, it might just sit in the ether for years or decades. And eventually, because it's just like a piece of digital, right? It's just numbers. It can just be destroyed and lost. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that, like, I think the preservation of film is as important now as it was 100 years ago, even though we're not
I,
perhaps.
I don't I don't think you have to worry, Austin. I think these movies are well preserved. I think you can. I think they'll be fine. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, like, yeah, I'm just saying that, like, they're very famous movies. Everybody loves Wiseman. He's a
Right.
very
Yeah.
well-regarded man.
Yeah. He should
Um,
be.
but I, s- but I see what you mean.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of them, and they're not exactly super accessible, maybe as much as I wish they were, but it doesn't really matter. You can easily go on. You can find them
Right.
pretty easily online. Um, it the the movies though require you to focus in on them. That's mainly the thing, you know what I mean? Like, that you have to do,
Hmm.
especially once you start getting into the 3, 4, 5 hour long
Yeah.
Wiseman movies. And when you do stick with it, it's a very fulfilling experience.
Yeah. Well, I think that captures Titicut
Yeah.
Follies as well as we could.
Yeah.
And I will end by saying that it's wonderful, it's great, it's Wiseman. I'm very excited to watch more of his work. I will probably go to the Internet Archives to watch more of his work because his films
Mhm. I'd
can be
recommend
found
watching them I've
in
been having a
order.
really good time watching them in a release order. It's really fun.
Yeah, yeah. I used to do that with a lot of directors, but I think Wiseman's definitely a filmmaker where I'd be very interested to see them order just because,
Yeah.
like, he's a documentarian that's very much he's just following his interests, right? It doesn't seem like he was ever making films for anyone else. Like, he's just making a movie because he's like, oh, this is interesting, and so he just goes and makes a movie. And so it's interesting to see. I mean, just the
Yeah.
idea of going from Titicut Follies to high school in itself is a fascinating choice, and
Yeah, it's cool.
there's a lot to be said about the similarities and differences between those two institutions in ways that perhaps high school does and doesn't prepare future students for the world. So, yeah, I mean, I think probably gonna go 9 out of 10. I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I'll go 9 out of 10 as well. Um, yeah, I'll also go 9 out of 10. One of the best documentaries ever. And yeah, you got to watch it. Everyone's got to watch it. Very essential documentary about a lot of different things. So
Yeah.
it's definitely an essential watch. And it's just a dense text, a lot of
Hmm.
great scenes, a lot of interesting things going on. And it's the best, for sure. I don't know if it's like my favorite. It's definitely not my favorite watching documentary, but it's very good.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you all for listening. You can find this podcast where your podcast is find us Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Nothing to say. Until next time.
Thanks again.